we're here to advise artists and just make sure that we're monitoring, making sure the money's going in the right place, that kind of thing. And yeah, my background's in visual arts, so that's my focus. Which covers like painting, sculpture, ceramics, all that. And Simon's.
So my background's in music and music education, so it's a bit left field me being here, but the other part of my role is we have a series of priority places, which we try to put more of our funding into, and one of them is Rotherham. So I'm our day-to-day lead for Rotherham, and it's great to be here with you all today.
Yeah. Do you all live in Rotherham?
Yeah.
Good stuff.
No.
That's okay.
Not far.
Yeah, all right. In Meadowhall?
A little bit further.
A little bit further. Right, fair enough. Who's heard of the Arts Council before? Good. No worries if not, we're covering the whole thing. Good.
This is the bit where I sit down then and let you
Yeah,
kick off then.
yeah. Good. So this presentation's covering essentially it's an introduction to our funding, public funding, which is National Lottery Project Grants, which we abbreviate to NLPG, and we'll also be covering something called DYCP, Developing New Creative Practice. There's a little twist in that, I'll say that for later. A grant is it's money you receive, and then you might pay yourself from that grant. We don't get taxed on the grant. And so, say you might ask for £10,000 to do an arts project. And so out of that budget, you'd identify your own wage, then maybe money for other artists, and then some money to rent a space, that kind of thing. You either have to be self-employed or have your own company. So either be self-employed, I think you need a PAYE code. I can talk about that a bit later if anybody wants more information. Yes. So, who is Arts Council England? We are the funding body for arts and culture in England. There's also Creative Scotland, past the border, and all the developed nations have their own Arts Council. We give out quite a bit of money, and the success rate is about 1 in 3. Before I worked at the Arts Council, I was a self-employed artist, so I had applied for funding myself. It took me a few goes, but I was successful with a bid, which I'll talk about later. And afterwards, we'll do some one-to-one sessions as well. So if anybody needs to be in a rush, by the way, let us know now, and we can talk to you earlier on. Was a short film. Let's see if it works.
These things, of course, never do.
No. Imagine a really nice film.
The video thing just below. Is it captions? Does that do the job?
No.
If not, it's on our website. There's nothing that you're not going to look at.
Essentially, it's about our strategy, which is called Let's Create, which is a 10-year strategy. And it was sort of born from the previous 10 years of funding. So it starts in 2020 with the idea that arts and culture is for everybody, and we hopefully directing our money so that people can get it and get access to arts. I'm from Burnley, so my sort of cultural background was very thin on the ground in terms of museums, galleries, anything. And so, working with the Department of Culture, Media and Sport, DCMS, they give us money to then give out and distribute via National Lottery. If anybody has any questions, by the way, just let us know. So National Lottery Project Grants, this is like the bread and butter of a lot of applications. You can apply from £1,000 to 30, we'll call that one and under, and then from 30 up to 100,000 plus. Personally, I applied for 10,000 to begin with back in the day, because then that was something I could manage a bit more, and I wasn't worried about having to manage £100,000. So that worked out well for me. And yeah, different art forms. So, got visual arts, music in the room. Let's do combined arts, dance, performance, theatre, digital art, all sorts of stuff. So whether it's, yes?
Could you just explain what combined arts means? Because I think there's at least one person in the room is there might be multiple aspects to an application.
So, with combined arts, it's a combination of different art forms essentially. So what the project that I did, I'll just say now, I worked with my local council to work in the library in Burnley, and we opened up a bit of a creative hub, and we had some exhibitions, we did some performances, we did some workshops, that sort of thing. So that fell under combined arts because we were doing a bit of film, a bit of painting, and a lot of like work with communities nearby. So that fell under that bracket. Generally, if your art form, whichever that is, might touch, say you might combine, might be a dancer, but you're also interested in music, that would fall under combined arts.
It's a bit of a mop-up term though, isn't it, for
Yeah.
a lot of different things, which can also include carnival, light festivals, outdoor arts, any of these sort of things that don't have a sort of easier simplified term for it. So it's more of a us thing so that we can categorise. But yeah, it's quite broad, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, and also museums and libraries. In terms of categorisation, it basically just means if when you make an assessment or you're asking for assistance, you can talk to the right relationship manager for the art form. Or if I'm missing it,
Oh, yeah.
The other big and popular fund is Developing Your Creative Practice, which you may have heard of. If not, it's if National Lottery project grants is for like outgoing work, and you might work with a school or a community. Developing Your Creative Practice, DYCP, it's for yourself, so you can apply for up to 12,000.
That's right.
And basically you might pitch to us, you might be an author or a poet, you want to write a book, study that, and practice that, and maybe you also want to go to Norway and like meet with some Norwegian scientists about something else, or you might want some more equipment, like might be a new cello, for instance. So all those things, that's for you to develop your own practice essentially. So very much what you might do on a foundation art course, or that's maybe sort of first couple of years of university, but compressed within a 12-month period. And yeah, just very clear like why now, why for you now, and what you hope to get out of it. You only get so many goes at applying for Developing Your Creative Practice. I think you can apply 3 times.
Yes, that's right.
Yes, and
Within a period of time.
yeah, within a period of time. Has anybody applied to this before? Yeah? Been successful?
Yes.
Good.
Very
Yes.
Unsuccessful, not successful.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not uncommon, unfortunately.
Yeah. And it was just probably, I wanted to develop my poetry and I wanted to be mentored by a South Asian artist who lives in Sheffield, and I didn't get that, and I want to still develop my poetry in two languages, because Hindi, Urdu, and probably learn from poets from my own country.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so I don't, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's also worthwhile when we're thinking about your own like, background, your own intersectionality. I'm from a working class background, and so therefore a lot of my practice is interested in like that outside of work. You also might have a disability, neurodiversity, whichever sort of your background is. We aim to make our funding so that it's spread evenly and fairly, also equitably, so people can benefit.
It's just worth touching on, because there is a bit of change going on at the moment, though, isn't there?
Yes. Currently, our IT systems are having a couple of issues. and that means that we've had to pause this until April. But there is the extra opportunity now of that we're running a research and development fund, which is basically DYCP. But instead of applying for up to 12,000, now you can apply for up to 30,000. And if you've applied for developing your creative practice previously, that doesn't matter anymore, just for this round. So I very much encourage anybody interested in developing your creative practice further to think about potentially applying, which hopefully we can help you today.
Just to mention it, the reason for it being up to £30,000 is a bit of a workaround by us at the moment, because we can't open all the programmes that we normally have at the same time because of our minor IT issues, which are actually quite big at the moment.
Yeah.
So we're funneling DYCP money through Project Grant, which is already open, and it's easier for us and it's easier for applicants as well. So that's why it's up to £30,000, because that's the limit on under 30s for project grants. It's just the money's ring fenced for individuals so that they, you don't have to go up against large organisations trying to get money. It's for a very specific purpose, for very much internal focus work that Sam was talking about before for your own creative practice. We don't necessarily encourage everybody to try and go for £30,000 though, and try and think about it more as being a DYCP type application and try and limit yourself if you can, but appreciate that that's not necessarily always possible.
Sorry, what does the NLPG stand for?
National Lottery Project Grants. I apologise in advance for any acronyms we use. We have so many complicated
Yes, too many.
systems. So developing your creative practice is DYCP, and NLPG is National Lottery Project Grants. But only us, Arts Council, England, ACE, people really care about that. For you, it's neither here nor there, I think. If you have a question?
Yeah, I was looking on the website and it said they expect most grants to be for around 12,000, but the maximum is 30,000.
Yeah.
And I was wondering why it said they expect it to be around 12,000, rather than
Yeah, it's a good question.
yeah.
Because we've got an agreement with Department of Culture, Media, Sport
Yeah.
that we run these certain rounds of funding continually for National Lottery Project Grants, but this has been put on hold, and usually it comes out of a separate pot of funding, essentially. So I had to fold into this. So in theory, you could apply for up to £30,000.
Yeah.
But we get hundreds of applications,
Yeah.
so we want to make sure we can distribute as much money as possible to as
Okay.
many people as possible.
Yeah.
So you might have one really good £30,000 application, or I might have 2 or 3 smaller applications. That doesn't mean to say the £30,000 won't get funded,
Yeah.
but I'm quite keen, especially with the cost of everything at the minute, everyone's on the ropes a bit, to make sure that we can get money out.
Yeah. Yeah. I understand.
What's R&D?
Research and development.
Does it ever happen that you'll go to say somebody who applied for £30,000 and say, we're not willing to give you that, but we can give you 25 or 20 or 50?
Yeah.
That does happen.
No, I wish it would. I wish we could have a bit more of a negotiation way, because if you're unsuccessful, you have to reapply.
Okay.
Other funders do,
Yeah.
but just because of the volume of applications we get, we can't really do it, unfortunately. But in theory, it'd be a really good idea.
Sorry, can I just ask, this, obviously there's a minimum 12,000. What does that actually, what are the funds meant for? Would that mean for the project, or would that be for your daily earnings? What does that mean, 12,000?
It depends on how you do the budget, which we'll talk a bit about later. But as well as so when you do an application, you submit your idea to us, and then there's a timeline, and then there's a budget. And so that budget is totally up to you. You might, what a lot of people do is, I was part of AN, the Artist Network, so I get like insurance, but also I could see sort of like daily fees for a visual artist, which was about 250 quid a day. So then I could say, right, so over the next 12 months, for like, well, for the next 52 weeks, 1 day a week, I'll pay myself $250. So that's however much it is. And then with the remainder of that, I might be buying equipment, I might be going to see a mentor, traveling about, all sorts of stuff. There's a lot of, as well, like access costs as well. So if you have any access needs and requirements, you can also apply for that within the funding.
It's effectively to cover all your project costs for the project that you describe in your developing your creative practice application. But it's worth noting that on our website we have lists of what eligible costs are, as in what you can apply for, and what counts as an ineligible cost, as in it wouldn't fit within the programme, things that we can't cover the costs of. So it's worth having a look at those.
Yeah, I just had another question, kind of touching on the budget. So basically, say you created a project,
Yeah.
and say like most of the time, if you're the lead project, if you're the lead artist, you'll pay yourself according to the rate set by the artist union
Yeah.
for the lead artist. But say you're working with someone, I don't know, a dance teacher, for example, and I understand you're meant to pay for you're meant to put in the budget for your time.
Yeah.
So how would you calculate how much you're going to pay yourself for your time? Would it go by the amount of years experience, or because in this field, say you don't have any experience dancing,
Yeah.
but you've got 5 years experience as a project manager,
Yeah.
you can't use the 5 years experience because you've not. You see what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
I see what you mean. It's a good question. It won't go against you.
Yeah.
Like, so if you had 5 year experience as a ceramicist or project manager, I'd expect to see that rate in the budget. I find it, I've had some applications where they like pay themselves like £80, and for me it's just not a goer.
Yeah.
So I would say err on the side of pay yourself decently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
In terms of pay rates, you talk about Artist Network give that information. There's
Yeah.
also is the Artists Union.
Yeah.
They have a really clear sort of payment scale of experience versus day rate. And It's not just day rates. It's like if you're applying for a year,
Yeah.
then it's going to be slightly different. I can give everybody the link to that. That's useful.
That'd be great.
There's also the musicians union.
Yeah, musicians union too.
Get unionised.
Have I understood correctly that the minimum grant is 12,000? So you couldn't say, I'll do it in 6,000?
No, that's the just to break it down a little bit. Project grants, as I mentioned before, is it can be between £1,000 and over £100,000. So it's got a huge scope. Developing a creative practice, when it was open, was between £2,000 and a ceiling of £12,000. So that's the maximum you could apply for. That's for your own work, basically your own processes. So that's what the 12,000 refers to, the ceiling on developing your creative practice. But what we're saying at the moment publicly is, if you are going to apply to the R&D fund that's currently replacing developing your creative practice, it would be preferable if you tried to pitch it around £12,000 because we only have a certain amount of money. Does that clarify?
Or less, presumably.
Or less, yeah, but equally,
No, just-
you know,
yeah, okay.
I think generally, is it fair to say, Sam, most people do end up coming in at the sort of top end of a request just because it kind of makes sense to a lot of the time.
The only one I've seen that got funded for, I think it was like 3,000, was there was a metal band and they wanted a van. So
Cheap van.
yeah, but that was the entire project, and that was the entire ask. I've had other applications where it's like, I'm a theatre maker, I want to work with children and do like show based around movement, but I also want an electric bike, and the electric bike for like £4,000, it didn't really seem like it was adding to the project. It was like, oh, I just want to ride around on an electric bike. It's fair enough, but we can't use public money in that way. So yeah. Some successful Rotherham applicants. So got Rhiannon, trainer
Yeah, online training, yeah.
who's running an electronic music club with children and young people.
So that was a grant from last year,
Mhm.
and Ryan, you know, to be fair, you guys probably know more about Rotherham artists than we do, but Ryan, I think, is a fairly successful DJ, electronic music producer in his own right, but given his children, you know, been working towards part of Children's Capital of Culture, has run a lot of young people's workshops and is really trying to encourage electronic music making in and around Rotherham.
Did they buy that wig with the funding?
No comment.
So that's an example of a National Lottery project grant. It's externally facing, working with people and working towards some sort of final thing, like whether it's a show or some other thing. Lee did 3. That was a developing your creative practice application where they wanted to develop their digital skills. So that, I think that was, essentially going on a course and boosting their own skills around digital technology. Decision making, right. So we're committed to fairness and consistency, and all applicants are treated the same way for the same process. I do talk to a lot of people, externally, artists and organisations, and they're like, oh, Arts Council must hate us, or they must not like me, or we don't have that oversight, unfortunately. We see hundreds of applications in a pack, and you're just reading through and like trying to work it out. So yeah, there's nothing personal. We'll follow a published process, and you can see the details and the guidance. And nothing's automated, there's no AI. We've tried it didn't work, it's too complicated, the arts are too complicated for AI. Yeah. Any questions around decision making? Yes.
Is the application anonymous? Do you see a photo of this?
When you apply, you can put in like your website or some examples of your work. If you wanted to include a photograph of yourself, you could. But otherwise, but we can see people's names and organisation names, just because that helps us keep track of people who are coming in again and again.
It'd be largely impossible as well, I think, for it to be anonymised, even though I can understand from the perspective of fairness why that, or objectivity, why that might be an interesting thing, but people are describing their work or the project they're working on or the festival, so it's kind of hard for it to be so in a way it's quite personalised.
Yeah. So some figures here. So National Lottery project grants had a budget of 95 million last year and received 6,000 applications asking for 198 million. So asking for 100 million more than the budget for. So we have to take difficult decisions about which projects will receive a grant and which won't. But hopefully you coming here today though, you'll get the advice to be a winning application. So eligibility. This is the first thing you do when you go through the application form. It's to see, do you live in the UK? And these sorts of things. Does the activity focus on one of our disciplines, like visual arts, dance, etc.? Will the project reach and engage people in communities? So this is for National Lottery project grants. So, yeah, I'm just thinking, like, some people, and a lot of people that are successful work with partners. So you might work with RAW, or you might work with a school, a library, something you're connected to, and it just sort of helps bolster the successfulness. If you were to get the money, can you do it? Is it a project? Yeah. Is there a start, middle, and an end? Sometimes, yeah. And it's not so much like, oh, we want to see an exhibition, share an exhibition at the end of it, and like that's what we all care about. Because it can be very much like process-led, process-based. So you might be working with, say, asylum seekers or people in recovery, and the work that you do with them is the project. So the outcome of it is you've moved from A to B, really, you've made that journey. Others, though, they do make a book, they do have an exhibition, they do have a parade. It's up to you. Yeah, and is there enough information in the application to understand what it is, to help us understand what it is you want to do? We have word counts, they're quite tight. Very much use the word count to your advantage and talk about the project. I do get a lot of applications where people talk about how maybe some of their personal circumstances. I was guilty of that when I applied. I was like, I'm totally skint and I need the money. But unfortunately, that doesn't. So I think it's worthwhile thinking that's my driver. But actually, if I did get this money, then I would be able to do X or Y. I might be able to go to Manchester, put an exhibition on there. So what are your aspirations as an artist? Think about in those terms.
Sorry, so can I just say
Yeah.
on the thing about supported art forms, you covered what those were really thoroughly before. The reason that we talk about that in terms of eligibility is just because there are other funders who fund certain types of work that we don't. And the ones that crop up most frequently are to do with film, so commercial film, and that there's funding that the BFI cover on that front. We do get applications because the lines do get blurred a little bit sometimes, and understandably so, because there's artistry in filmmaking, but it's just that it comes from a different pot of money. Fashion style type related projects, once again, there is a bit of a blur in the line because there's costume involved in things like carnival. But it's, there's also other lottery funders who cover things that are more community focused and perhaps don't have a creative or artistic outcome at the heart of it, which we might not be able to fund. But so that's why we're so specific around what the art forms are that we fund.
So just the sort of, I suppose, the difference between applying for a project and then applying for DYCP. With the project, you want to see a beginning, a middle, and end, and an outcome. Is it the same with DYCP? Would it help an application to say, I want to improve my creative practice in these ways because I want to do an exhibition or because I want to make a new body of work? Is that crucial? Or?
The body of work, yes. But because it's if you say like exhibition, then we'll be like, all right, well that's a project grant because that's a project. But if you were more, I want to learn this because I feel like this is the right time in my life, and I think this would be like an asset to me as an artist. I might be moving into a new field or trying a new process. It's more along those lines.
Okay.
The questions in the form really direct it anyway, particularly with developing your creative practice. They sort of direct your thinking, the information that you're giving, and that's it.
Yeah. And just so a lot of what we're saying about developing your creative practice is essentially the R&D funds that we're talking about as well. So yeah.
Has been replaced or?
Just temporarily until April. So in April, developing creative practice will open again. That will be
And is this open now?
so.
The R&D fund is now
Yeah.
open, yeah.
Yeah.
What will happen is if you go on our website and there's something that says apply for funding, it will take you through to a link and it will ask you whether you want to apply for project grants or any of there are various other strands of project grants, and one of them is the R&D fund. So you clicked on that link and just make sure that you went through that funnel, so to speak.
Yeah. Feasibility and risk check. So just before relationship managers see it, all of our applications go through a different team that just make sure it's like feasible, and they sort of do a light risk assessment. So that might be things like we're concerned that a lot of the project delivery is just down to one person. So what happens if that one person isn't well, for instance? So that's where a partner might come in. So any risks you have, and you can have the riskiest project in the world, as long as you show how you've considered it and how you might mitigate it, lower the risk, really. So if you wanted to do outdoor woodwork, you might do a chainsaw course, and like just thinking, right, so like just follow some like sort of health and safety things around that.
I've got a quick question actually.
Yeah.
Say you wanted to, say you had like a group of 20 people and they were battling depression, for example, and you wanted to take them out to say the Yorkshire Dales for a fun day out on dirt bikes, for example, to improve their psychological well-being.
Yeah.
And you've done the necessary risk assessments. Would that be feasible, or would it just be kind of, are you just having a laugh?
That's feasible.
Okay.
We've funded a project very much like that
Yeah.
in the northwest. It was around, like black and brown people being out into nature and sort of experiencing that around that well-being.
Yeah.
So an element to that, that's a good example, is around evaluation. How do you know what you're doing is good? So for that project, it was kind of like surveys and things like that, and so measuring at the start where people are at,
Yeah.
and then through the course of the project, capturing that as it was going on. And it's not like we're expecting every project to succeed or do exactly what it was let out to do, because it can be quite difficult to plan so far ahead. But projects change, budgets change. But yeah, so that'd be
Okay.
go on.
Cheers.
potentially. We asked for a project timeline, so that's just, it helps. I found it useful as well, like going through it, even though it was a bit of a blag. But to be able to like think, right, so I need to do this, and then like a few weeks later, that'll take a few weeks. Because then I'll do that, might go do that. Let's site visit, bit of a recce, make sure the room's safe or whichever. And are the partners useful and relevant? Are the venues in place to support the activity? If you were, say, a theatre maker, do you have access to a space to do a show? Doesn't have to be a theatre, could be outside, could be anywhere. But just thinking things through in that way. The budget, is the income and expenditure, is it realistic and appropriate? It's like, it can be useful as well, like to talk to your local arts organisations if you have any queries, as well as relationship managers. Like, does this sound right? Is this okay? Because it can be a bit, I found it a bit daunting when I started out, because it was like, what is the price for all this stuff? It's kind of guessing a bit. But that's where kind of talking to a network of other artists really comes in handy. And yeah, checking things
I think
in.
that Royal members can book time with me to go through any questions and thoughts on their applications. We just do that through the website.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, I very much lean on the arts organisations in Rotherham, Row, and get your money's worth. Check up.
Oh, sorry, Sam. It was just to say on money, because you mentioned it, the expected income that you list in your budget, so the money that's not confirmed to date, as in you might need ticket sales for an exhibition or something like that, that would form part of the risk check, and it might be something that would get noted by our grant management team, who would say, there's a certain amount of expected income within this project that's yet to be confirmed. So we'll note that, just so that the panel's aware of it. It's not necessarily the be all and end all. It's not going to be the thing that sort of is, the difference between yes or no with the decision, but it's just for our sake, so we've noted what the potential risks of the project are.
Yeah. There's also some gold match funding, where essentially somebody else or an organisation's agreed to put to your budget. So you might talk to your local council and be like, I want to do a walk around this. And I think, good idea, I'll put 500 quid in if you're successful. So that also helps us be like, all right, so this person sounds like they're a bit of a go-getter. They'll go out and like talk to people, they'll get money in and can convince others their project's good to get. It's not necessary, but it's good. There's also in-kind support as well. So if you come to Raw, say, and you're interested in doing an exhibition here, maybe they'll be like, yeah, I'll do it for free. But it's valued at a few hundred quid a night. So over, say, a week, that's like 1,500 quid. That's in kinds then. So it's like, it adds value to the project without it being monetary. Same if you have your own equipment. So if you have like a bunch of woodworking tools already, that's something you can add in. Decision meeting. We do a lot of these a year, and this is where at least 2 relationship managers will then go through, call them packs of applications, and we get a week or 2 to read through everything. Then we have a decision meeting where we actually then go through them one by one, and we have a scoring matrix, and we can leave comments, and there might be comments that saying, oh, this just needs a bit more development, and we'll give that feedback. Or it might be a bit like, well, this isn't going to happen at all. But most of the time, like a lot of the projects we do receive are good, and it's a case of like, right, so which one would be like really make a difference? One of the bonuses of living in a place like Rotherham is it's a priority place. So, because of historically, a lot of money went to London essentially, and that's not been too good. So, in 2020, we run these priority places. So areas where they've got less funding, less investment in arts and culture over time, with Rotherham being one. Barnsley, yeah.
North East Lincolnshire. I think he one's in Yorkshire anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's quite.
The list goes on.
Yes. So that'll. So when we have like 2 very equal applications, we say, all right, well, one's from a priority place or a priority person, somebody who's less represented. They'll get. It just helps. It helps. Any questions on that?
Yeah, I've just got one question, just a quick one. So say you've put in a few applications and you've been declined.
Yeah.
But it never got to that stage. It was declined at the beginning stage because there is a risk.
Yeah.
If it does get to this stage on your third attempt, will these people who's deciding, will they be aware that it's been declined the first 2 times, and will it possibly go against you?
No.
Okay.
Because I was wondering that. Because outside the Arts Council, so like, oh, they must sort of like sitting in their ivory towers drinking like nice tea and stuff, and you know, what do they know about the real world? But it's not. We're just people. And there's a little box at the bottom of each application saying how much this person has received in the past, how many applications, how many have been successful or unsuccessful.
Yeah.
But that's it. It just depends on the project.
Yeah.
Some people, there might be like bang, 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 they're successful again and again.
Yeah.
And like, well, why are they? And other people, you can like, apply, you're not successful, you change the project, you go back, and it's just like. So that's where I think having a relationship with a relationship manager could be really useful, because you can sort of like work it out a bit.
Yeah.
Got kind of a general question about applications. Sometimes I help people go through their applications, and sometimes it's really obvious that they've used artificial intelligence to write it. Okay? Now my presumption is that the Arts Council will go, if it's really obviously written by AI, that's not acceptable. But I don't know that, so that's my presumption. Do you run it through anything to detect that, or
No.
do you make any decisions if you suspect it?
It's a good question. It's something we talk about, because on the one hand, if like English is your second language, or you have accessibility needs, dyslexia, etc., you might think, well, I'm going to use this to sort of even the playing field a bit. Fair enough. Other people, I think the thing about AI is, you have to remember, it's trained on so much stuff and it ends up, can be quite generic. And I've seen quite a lot of applications where it's just like they've copied and pasted this from ChatGPT, which don't go against them, but I think something is lost in translation then when you do have something through. I'd rather have that sort of like badly worded but honest and authentic thing.
I agree with you, because I write funding bits
Yeah.
in my day job and I won't use AI.
Yeah.
Because it takes away the emotion, the passion.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's like your personal choice. Does the Arts Council have a position on it?
We do have an AI policy.
We do have an AI policy, but it's not like, it's not anti-AI or anything. It's just like, make sure you use the right tool at the right time.
Right.
And make sure you're like thinking about our environmental impact of using AI. But if you do an AI application, it's not going to go against you or anything. Personally, I like to see what's inside. But as well, I don't know the applicant, so they might have so much stuff going on that I'm not aware of. So I can't judge that negatively either.
The policy basically says what Sam just said, that you know, whilst it's legitimate to use it, your authentic self and the work that you do is only going to shine through and you talk about it in your own voice. You know,
That's good to know, because that's the feedback I can give people.
Now I've been on some funding and they said they can tell and it isn't, not
Yeah.
right.
I would say if maybe a balance would be have AI to like help you, but then rewrite that what the AI has done, because at least it's just a bit more of yourself.
I'm always thinking about medicine. I don't think I've ever spotted anything that seems to have been written by AI, but I think that's more a reflection of me. That's a bit worrying.
It's good to read all sorts of stuff. So in terms of like what actually makes a project, is there a clear creative or cultural idea behind it? Which is like real like essence. In terms of our marking criteria, I would do for example.
We're okay, but we're about to have about an hour left, so it depends on how many individual conversations we're doing.
Yeah.
7, okay. We'll rush through my bit because there's.
Does the application show ambition and potential to realise that ambition? Are there clear plans to reflect on the progress, so evaluations, like feedback, checking in? Might have a critical friend. People and communities, for National Lottery project grants, that's sort of bread and butter because of our strategy, let's create. So other people or communities the project plans to reach involved in the design or planning. If you're doing a thing with children, have you like talked to them first, like checked that this is something that they want, or is it something you're doing to them? I think it's good to get people involved as early as possible. And we don't expect like every project to have like 1,000 odd people turn up to it and do it. It can be for like 8 or just some engagement. It's bit about using information and data sort of back up where you are with your project. It might be you've identified through some research, right, there's no painting exhibitions happening in North Rotherham. I want to do something around that. All of this is it's covered quite a lot of depth on the website through a lot of the guidance. So, yeah. Anyway, I'll pass on to Simon now.
No worries. Okay. I'll try and talk briefly because I think Sam's covered everything. It all ends up in the same slides anyway, so a lot of this will just be repeating what he's already said, but it'll just help to kind of consolidate that a little bit. We've always tried to encourage equality in terms of being able to give people opportunities, everybody to apply for Arts Council funding, but sometimes that's not enough, and we still see that levels of funding are disproportionate within geographical places and in different types of people, different groups of people. So equity is increasingly important in Arts Council's work. We want to choose to prioritise applications from people and places that are underrepresented in our funding. And we know for a fact that, historically, people from global majority backgrounds have struggled to access our funding, and we're working actively to change that through our decision making. as Sam talked about in detail as well, we have a set of priority places to help increase the amount of funding going into specific towns, boroughs, cities that haven't had enough of Arts Council's money in the past, including Rotherham, which is a great thing because it means that you get more access to relationship managers' time, get more feedback if your application's unsuccessful, and we help to create partnerships and introduce you to different organisations and people who might be able to help you with your projects. That's reflected in our decision making. If we always have more applications on the table than we can fund, we have to use balancing criteria then to make a decision between perhaps 2 or 3 applications that are all fundable, but we only have enough money left at the end of the meeting to fund one of them. We'll use that balancing criteria to do that. Is this applicant from a priority place? Are they working in a priority place? Is the applicant from an underrepresented background, so either a global majority background, or do they have a disability? That might be the deciding factor in them getting funding and the other applicant not doing. It is getting increasingly tough though, because we're finding a lot of our applicants come from priority places, and then therefore we've got decisions to make.
Sorry, does that mean that certain applicants are more successful than others because of their disabilities or?
Certainly can be, yeah. But that's a published guidance and criteria for us.
It's all equal. Like there's plenty of people from white backgrounds, middle class backgrounds that receive money.
Because disability can be often subjective, can't it? You know, mine might seem that was disabled, but I might have other needs, you know, so I think it's a difficult area, isn't it, to say that, you know, certain people are more successful because of their...
I think, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
With disability, it's, you put a box saying I'm disabled if you are disabled on a road diversion. You don't have to you don't have to go to your GP and have a certificate or anything. You can diagnose yourself, and that covers everything from dyslexia to extreme mobility issues and everything in between. We don't know enough about every applicant's different needs, so we use whatever is in the application. That's something what can go on.
I suppose it's worth just mentioning as well, this is balancing criteria. It's not the fundamental decision-making process. The main thing that's always going to be the case with funding applications to us is the strength of the application and how well it responds to what we're looking for. Okay? Matt?
If you have a studio in Rotherham,
Yes.
but you live in Sheffield, but you work obviously in Rotherham in your studio, can you apply as if priority place because of your studio address, or do you have to apply from your home address?
It depends. It's up to the applicant to state what their address is, and it might be a business address or it might be their home address. We don't tell you what you have to do in that sense. It does result, therefore, in some people strategically choosing to apply from a certain address because they know the way that the game works. But equally, a lot of the time, that's really clear from the application. We wouldn't necessarily always choose to fund an applicant if they have a postal address in Barnsley, but they do all the work in St Ives, for example. You know what I mean? It's pretty clear. Okay, I'll skip through this really quickly then. Right, are we the right funder for your project? We've already talked about this quite a lot of length. It might be that it's not the right type of art form that we can support, or it might be that you're finding 3 or 4 applications in, you've been unsuccessful a number of times over, and for whatever reason, what you're wanting to do just doesn't quite fit well with us, or we just can't get it through. We can only fund 1 in 3 applications. Our success rate goes somewhere between 30%. It can dip as low as 25%. It's lottery money and it fluctuates in terms of the amount available. So that's the question that you need to ask yourself from time to time. Are we the right funder for your project? It'd be a useful thing to think about, and know as well who the different funders are, who might work for what you want to do. There's a load of supporting information on our website and in terms of our teams available to all applicants to help you in the process of applying. So over the next few slides, I'll share a little bit of detail about access support, the applications process, and our guidance library. Okay, first we'll talk about access support. So we're committed to being open and accessible to everyone. We know that, from past experience, not that our systems aren't always that easy to access, or certainly haven't been in the past. We try our best to improve those all the time to make them more accessible to everybody. However, we also have ensured that we are increasing our access support to applicants who need that at the stage of not even carrying out the project yet, pre-application work. So here are some of the ways that we can help. So we can help with reading our guidance or making an application online. We can help with notes to be taken if you need help in one-on-one meetings with that. We can also help you with a BSL interpreter to support you in one-to-one meetings with us. We can translate applications made in BSL into written English. We can provide a support worker if you're involved in the mental health system, or if you have a learning disability or a neurodivergent. That has to be applied for in advance. There's a route through on our website. So if you typed in Arts Council Access Support on Google, it will take you to a link which would enable you to look into that process. But you can't be doing it sort of a couple of days before you plan to put in an application, because it wouldn't enable us to have enough time to put the wheels in motion with it. Is there any questions on that? Okay. Just to mention too that in terms of if you do access support, that doesn't mean that you have to then make an application immediately afterwards. It's not compulsory. We're not saying that because you've had money to support the pre-application process, it has to result in an application. So when you're writing an application, the main port of call in terms of initial support for all applicants would be our customer services team, who are always on the phones and on email to support applicants with all the different needs in applying. They're an amazing team. They're incredibly knowledgeable. A lot of the things that people presume they need to talk to a relationship manager about can often be mistaken because they know so much about it, all our different programs. So, really, really detailed knowledge of project grants and of developing a creative practice. Rather applicants are unfortunate because they do also have access to relationship manager support, but you might find that the simplest thing to do is just to pick up the phone and talk to customer services. So on our website we've got a guidance library as well. On this resource, once again just typing in on Google Arts Council Project Grants Guidance Library, you'll find the guidance for applying for the different strands of National Lottery project grants, or when it's back in action again, developing your creative practice. There's also a set of separate information sheets available that relate to different art forms or different sort of things that might crop up in when applying for project grants. What can I apply for? What are eligible costs? There'll be information sheets specifically around visual arts and the types of projects that people apply for, as an example. So they're really, really useful to look at and think about. Maybe that's something that could inform the way that you apply. Speaking of the guidance for the applicants, so the initial port of call if you're looking to apply to project grants is the guidance for applicants £30,000 and under. This is a detailed document which goes blow by blow through the type of things that we're going to ask you in the application form and the sort of information that we need from you in order for you to be eligible to apply. It'll talk you through what the common pitfalls are in applying that would stop you from being eligible, and it's there to help you put in the best possible application for you. There's also an easy read version of all our guidance, which tries to put our information into even more plain English. So hopefully that can be helpful too. I always find that for me, that's the initial go-to before trying to digest the more detailed version of the guidance.
Where's that more concise version?
Also in the same place. So if you type in, when you go on the Project Grants landing page, it will take you through to the guidance, and then it also has an easy read version just below the link to the normal guidance. The second thing we sort of type of document would really say is really important to look at is the template for the application form, which is available as an offline version, so to speak. So, you know, if you're like me, I prefer not doing things on online portals. I want to write on Word initially. So this lets you take the questions out of the form and to start thinking about your responses, and also thinking about word count as well, because as Sam mentioned before, they are limited in terms of, you know, the amount of words you're allowed to use. So certainly recommend having a look on that. I'm not going to go into any detail now about what the questions are specifically. You can probably imagine the type of things they would be, like, you know, what is your project, who is it going to reach, etc., etc. How much money is it going to cost to do that? But we'll certainly have a look at that form before maybe trying to organise a conversation with customer services or a relationship manager. How much should I apply for? So the average amount requested for project grants has increased over the last few years. There's loads of good reasons for that, because we want people to be ambitious, produce quality work, and as Sam talked about before, we want people to be paid fairly as well. It does reduce the number of applications we can support, though, when everybody applies for the top end of a particular band of funding. So we'll find often with £30,000 and under project grants, you know, 80% of the applicants will apply for nearly £30,000. That's fine, but it just doesn't mean, therefore, that we can't support as many applications as we want, because every panel meeting has a set budget. Whether it's advisable for them to go, well, can I try and sneak in a bid for £4,000, £5,000, when I know that it's not going to be enough to actually make me do what I want to do in my project, that's a matter for debate. But you're going to know what's best for you. You might find as well that we've been unsuccessful once, twice over, and I'm starting to think, do I sort of, you know, come down a little bit to make myself a bit more competitive? It's a question, but, you know, it's a kind of learning process as you go along. What makes a strong application? Okay, so Sam used the phrase before, which is really important. A really key thing in all our applications, the strongest ones are those which really identify what is the difference that your project is going to make. Because National Lottery project grants is for projects that are externally facing and intended to benefit people in England to get them access to arts and culture, we want to know what the difference is going to be in terms of the experience of people. So is your project going to be reaching groups of people, for example, who have really limited access to arts and culture, publicly funded arts and culture in their area? Do they live in the middle of nowhere, in a really rural area where there aren't art centres or there aren't art galleries, so they rely on touring type work? Is it going to engage people who would never ever have an experience of printmaking, for example, and you're going to bring it to them? That's a clear and tangible difference, and that's what the best applications will do. They'll really sort of write the story of what that looks like. We talked about partnerships already and why they're so important. They enable you to do things that you wouldn't be able to do otherwise, and they provide you with resources that would cost you a lot more money than that. So it might be rehearsal spaces, or it might be, sorry Matt, not to put you on the spot, or it might be like, using studios at at reduced rates. I don't know. Sorry if that's not the case, but just an example. So, partnerships can be really, really crucial, and it helps build us have more confidence in applications. Who is the audience or the target group of participants for the work that you're doing? If we know that you have a clear idea of who you're trying to reach, then that's great for us, because it means that we understand the project better and what the public benefit of it is. We talked about risks and challenges already, but it shows good project management if you already know what potential risks of the project are in advance and how you're going to mitigate against them and put plans in place that enable you to work around that. No project works the same as it does on paper that it does in real life, and we want to see that you understand that and that you're going to be able to navigate it. And then finally, clearly articulate why. Why is this important? Why are you doing this? Often it's a really good thing to go to somebody else, read through your application and to make sure that they can understand why you're doing it. Because if that doesn't shine through, then it's a bit like, well, is it going to make a compelling application? Okay, so we're at the end of this. There's no, we've got a few people that we want to have in the individual sessions, but just as a quick summary, we talked a little bit about who Arts Council England are, what we can do in terms of the different grant programs we run, how that can be relevant to you as an artist or somebody running a project. We talked about the different types of strands of work that we do, what we can fund and what we can't fund, and what makes a good project, among many other things too. But hopefully that's been really helpful. It's great to engage with you guys and to see a few different faces, new faces, who are working in the arts sector, and look forward to having chats with you, some of you after this. But if anybody's got any burning questions that they want to ask now, then do feel free to. Yeah.
Yeah, can you apply for both funding pots at the same time?
Oh, it's always a good one. I really feel like.
You've got two very different things you wanted to do.
Well, you definitely can't at the moment because one of them's not open. But generally speaking, no. Anyway, because what we tend to say is that you can only do one thing at a time. People can ask for permission to apply to different funds at the same time, but they have to be given that permission. You'll often find as well that it takes so much work and effort and energy to put into one application that putting two in would be really difficult anyway.
When's the deadline for the Larry?
When does it close?
Yeah.
Yes, sometime around April.
Yeah, what about if you're working with a group of people who are retired and
Yeah.
they're wanting a grant and you said they've got to be self-employed? If they're retired, a group of people who are retired and they're doing something, how would we go about that?
I would start some sort of organisation. That might be a company, a community interest company. I forgot what the legal requirements are. I think it can just be incorporated and it's obviously have like some sort of charter or document. And then whoever would lead that organisation can be the holder of the grant. And then the people doing the work, either you pay them, as you would, or they can be volunteers if they don't need the money. Volunteers can also be a good way to get more in-kind support for your project. So if you're, say, working with a community centre already, you might have a batch of people there that are already going to help out. That's the sort of day job.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.